Uganda, like a number of African countries, has turned to China for loans to develop its infrastructure. Unlike loans from the West, which usually have conditions such as good governance, respect for human rights and democracy, China's investments have no such restrictions.
It's because we cannot access such funding from the multilateral lenders to build our infrastructure projects and therefore ensure sustainability for our country. So yes, we see China being more prominent in the debt architecture of Uganda.
Some of the big projects that China has funded in Uganda include the Entebbe-Kampala Expressway, Karma Hydropower Dam, Isimba Dam, and the expansion of Entebbe International Airport.
We needed a lot of infrastructure, especially in terms of roads and energy, which needed large monies and very quickly. That was the feeling of Uganda. Much as Uganda was getting the money from the West in the earlier years, it wasn't at the speed at which the country felt they needed to do their investments. So China solves that part of the challenge.
While Chinese investments have contributed to Uganda's infrastructure development, some critics say the terms of these loans might burden Uganda in the long run.
The aspects of governance, selection of projects, implementation of projects has left Uganda with a burden of the economy not growing as fast to generate sufficient revenues to repay the loans, which is really a catch-22 position. You borrowed, you did the infrastructure, now the day of payment has come, you don't have the money.
Uganda's public debt from China has been rising over the past years. It hit about $3 billion by 2020 and is expected to keep rising as traditional creditors such as the World Bank threaten to cut funding.
And then we see instead the commercial and the bilateral loans are growing. For example, the bilateral loans we now have 28%, but 70% of the 28% is held by China. Yeah, and so that is where we see China's prominence in our debt, in our debt structures as a country.
Like any other creditor, China asks for security for its loans. The collateral provided is rarely disclosed to the public, given that it may sometimes involve national assets such as airport and lakes.
Now, it is normal business if you lend me and you say we shall use the oil money to pay back. Now, we must make sure the oil flows, because if it doesn't flow, then we have a problem. So there is that concern that we could have had a moral hazard issue on Chinese loans, lending more than they were sure we were not going to pay, clearly knowing when we fail to pay, the assets will be attached.
Imported Chinese goods are to the loan issue. Chinese-made products are in most shops here in the central business district of Kampala. Most of them are cheaper than goods produced in Uganda, raising concerns in Kasita, a Uganda Business Support Association.
You find that a Chinese who is a manufacturer, he sends a brother in Uganda to open a wholesale shop and even retail. They have reached an extent of hawkering these products, moving from home to home. So you find that aggressiveness, which we are resisting as Kasita.
As Chinese interests and influence in Uganda keep growing, some observers warn that Uganda is largely at a disadvantage in the long run. For VOA, I'm Fahad in Kampala, Uganda.